Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
It's like all my favorite people in one room.
Right? Sort of in one room.
I know I missed you all. It's like virtual hugs, right? It's been such a long year without travel.
It's been a long year regardless.
Yeah.
It's been a very long year regardless. And I didn't put any questions about the pandemic and how that's changed how you work as women in tech or anything like that. So maybe we should just start off that way. So, I've read, let me hit the format really quickly for the people that are here. I have a list of questions that we're going to go through. I'm going to ask the people who are the panelists to introduce themselves. So that's Pam, Anna, Julie, Sia, and Yana. So I'll ask them to introduce themselves in just a minute. And what we'll do is I'll go through these questions. They're really open-ended, designed to generate discussion. I think they have made it where any of you can unmute if you want to ask a question or a follow-up. But just be warned that if you kind of like pull us too far off topic, I will politely pull you back on topic. So let's dip through introductions, and then we'll circle back to what I was just going to talk about. So Pam, I'll start with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Sorry. I'm Pam Lahoud. I'm a program manager with the SQL Server team. And right now my focus is SQL Server and Azure VM. I've been with Microsoft for about 15 years. And before that, I was a DBA. And before that, I was a database developer and all kinds of good stuff. So I've been working with SQL about it's more than 20 years now.
Long time. Okay, Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I'm a data scientist / PM / whatever I'm needed on a given day. So I think everyone here can probably relate. But I've been on the team for a few years and been at Microsoft for about 4.5 years. I'm excited to be here to talk about women in tech and anything else that comes up.
Nice. Okay, Julie.
Okay, I am Julie Cosmano. I am a PM in the SQL Tools and Experiences team. I've actually only been at Microsoft for 5 years now. But I've joined the SQL Tools team for a year now. So interesting journey. Before that, I was a consultant in database world, database management, database development, DBA-ish kind of almost, but not quite. I'm a wannabe DBA, but never really got there. Dabbled a lot with BI and data warehousing world. Reed did ask for us to state something that is kind of cool and make us sound important.
That is not how I phrased that.
Let's see. I'm gonna call out on the people that actually have introduced themselves. Anna is one of the best hosts for a video kind of virtual recording. So I had a pleasure working with Anna, and she's super awesome and to talk to as well. Pam, amazing. If you go to a meeting with her, she asks really direct point questions. So this is more kind of on the soft side of it. But in general, she knows so much about SQL Server. So that's why I kept saying that I'm a wannabe DBA, because there's no way I could be measured to Pam at all. As for myself, my greatest accomplishment is I've moved to this is the third country I've lived in. There's a lot of learning that goes with it, including joining Microsoft and everything. So some of it we can share here. So I think that's probably it.
Okay. Sia, I'll let you go next.
Hi, everyone. This is Sia here. Sia is my name, but I go by Sia. I have been with Microsoft for about 2 years now. Just finished 2 years. And then prior to that, I came to the US to do my master's in business administration from UCLA. And before that, I was working as a software engineer for about slightly close to 3 years in Ford Motor Company. I am very new to data. So this is my first DPS conference. I have been in Pam's team, but I work for Azure SQL Edge close to 9 months now. It's been a very interesting, very exciting journey so far. And that's it. That's about me.
Okay, Yana?
Pretty cool area to work on, by the way.
It is, right? She came in and she got the new good stuff. So I will ask, is it Yana or is it Yana?
Yana. Yes.
Okay.
The Russian way to pronounce it.
Right. So
yeah, there is also the American way, which is okay. Yeah. Once they wrote in Starbucks Rihanna, and I put it on all my social media. I was so happy. You have no idea.
Nice.
So that happens too. That's okay.
Everyone has to have a Starbucks name.
Yeah, that's mine, and I'm so happy, really. So what I'm Yana. I'm from actually 4 countries. So this is my 4th country, US. Before that, it was Canada. I'm Canadian. I'm also Israeli, but I was born in Russia, actually Soviet Union, but Russia it is. So what brings me here? I'm a information system and industrial engineer with an MBA from Israel. And my greatest accomplishment is that I have both served in the army and after that had my own company for 6 years. I was a consultant in the BI area. And right now I'm in Microsoft, just a year, just getting started. After being an MVP, I know a lot of people in the community. Hi, Heidi, and the rest of the people. And now I work with Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent with instructor-led training. So any questions about that would be welcome.
Nice. So I'm re-Irish. I am Merit. I am moderating today's session. I have been with Microsoft for a little over a year now. Prior to that, I was a DBA and I managed a very large team of DBAs and was a Microsoft MVP. And then the job dropped in my lap to run the MVP community for Microsoft. And I've been incredibly happy and lucky to get to do a job that I love every day. I did a session the other day and on the slide for what I do, I used a GIF of herding cats because I felt that most appropriately described what it is that I do for a living. But I do moderate a lot of these Women in Tech panels for sessions all across the globe. And Amit came to me and said, "Hey, can you do one of these for DPS?" And I agreed, and all of these fantastic Microsoft ladies agreed to participate with me. So I appreciate that you're all here. So the question that I started to ask before we went through the introductions was, so I've read a few studies recently about how the pandemic is affecting women in a different way in the workplace than it is men. So in a lot of countries around the world, women carry more of the load at home than men do. And so women have actually had to quit their jobs at a greater frequency than men have during the pandemic. And part of that is because so many kids aren't back in school and women are having to pull double duty. So I'll start with Pam, but I'll ask if any of the rest of you have had to shift priorities and what has the pandemic added to or changed about your workload? So if you want to answer that, Pam.
Sure. So I've been lucky. My son is still in preschool, and his preschool did not close during the pandemic. Nice. So for me, thankfully, I haven't necessarily had too much of a change to my day-to-day. And actually, because I had a long commute, the working from home, like I've sort of been able to balance like the extra load with that, oh, I got this time for my commute back. So that aspect of it, I think I've been lucky. And also my partner is not working, so he's able to pick up the slack when, we've had times where, nowadays when my son gets a cold, like, normally if he just has a runny nose, I'll just send him to school anyway. Now we can't do that, right? If he's got even anything remotely, illness related, he has to stay home. But thankfully, my partner's been able to kind of pick up the slack there. So I'm personally lucky. I am in a moms in tech group, and I know that not everyone is as lucky as me. And if this continues into next year, I'll probably need to make some changes because he'll be, starting kindergarten. So that's been my experience. But I know others have not been as fortunate.
Julie, I'll hop to you next. If there's been anything that the pandemic has changed about the way you work or your workload or anything like that.
Yeah, it's actually a good question. I'm trying to think back about this. So my situation are not with young children, since I don't have kids. My situation with aging parents. So I have one aging parent who actually lives in Australia, so it's far for me to go. Last year, I actually had to make a trip to Australia, not once, but twice, probably almost my third time as well, because my mom had a stroke. So that wasn't, that was hard. But in hindsight, I was kind of glad that I was able to be there for her when I was still able to travel and actually help with care and everything else. If it had happened this year, I don't know what to do. I'd probably be a bit lost. I mean, I do have family back in Australia, so that's still okay. But you know how it is, it can be challenging. So I think to me, after coming out of that sort of live moment, sort of going into pandemic, I know that one of the first thing that I probably my approach is first of all is gratitude. There's still a lot of things that I could still be grateful for, that my husband and I can be very grateful for sure. But in addition to that, I know that it's one of those things that there have been a lot of life moments in my life, I suppose, that this is one of those things that I picked up straight away, that self-care is important, because when you don't get this self-care time to do self-care, you're not going to be able to help the people around you, whether it's at work, whether it's at home with your friends or whatever that might be. So yeah, so that's one aspect of it. It's not quite work, but it does actually affect work. Workload wise, it has been quite quite a lot. Like, I was expecting things to kind of like slow down, but I haven't seen it. I don't know about my peers here. I don't think I've seen it. I have to say that I'm super lucky. I love the work that I do. On top of that, I love the people that I work with. And that makes this whole remote situation super easy for me, which is not for everybody. But I am in that yeah, I have to say that there are certain things that I've made choices in life that gives me some of this privilege of being able to work with one of the kind of best teams to work with, being able to essentially perform and continue learning and continue to deliver of the things that we wanted to deliver. Don't get me wrong, I still get a lot of customers or users that say, blah, 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 suck, you're not doing your job. But it's part of it. But yeah, I know some of you giggle, probably that's what you also have heard from people too. So
well, I'm not in a customer facing role, so not really.
Wow.
Not really. I mean, I don't, depending, I guess it depends on how you define. So did any of the three panelists want to comment on like that particular question on how the pandemic has changed anything for you? No? Okay. So I'm going to hop to the first organized question that I have, which is, and we'll run through the same order, or actually this one, I'm going to start with Yana, and then I'll go to Sia. So do you think having a degree is required to get a job or to be successful in tech?
I think that it makes it much easier
to have a degree and a relevant degree. And I believe that my journey was easier due to my degrees, and I got a lot of doors opened for me much easier than friends that I have that do not have a degree in a relevant field. However, to be successful in your job, I cannot agree with that, because to be successful in your job, you have all the tools that you need, even if you don't have the degree. If you are in this position, that means people are believing in you, and that means that you can deliver and will be delivering. That's my opinion. But to make it easier, how to get your foot in the door, yeah, that would be the best way, I believe.
Nice. Sia?
In terms of degree, I think I was lucky that all my degrees right from high school have been in STEM, which kind of paved the path to where I wanted to go. Rather for me, it felt like the path was already chosen before even I had the opportunity to choose what I wanted to do at a given point. Because when I was in 10th grade, I decided that it's computer science, and then from that it became pretty organic in terms of where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. But having said that, when I was in B school and even in Microsoft, I had the pleasure of working with folks who come from not the traditional backgrounds. And the amount of different thoughts that they bring to the table, the way they think about problems, the way they try to solve a given problem, that's actually mind-blowing, the perspectives that you get. And that's where my thoughts that, having a degree helps, but it's definitely not necessary to be successful in this place. The skills that are actually very successful in any job, and particularly in a PM role, because that's the role I'm in, is problem solving. And as a PM, you tend to move into different product groups. And so that means that you need to be very curious to learn and have the thirst to learn about what's happening, understand it, assimilate it, and then immediately try to solve the problems, be more customer focused. So these skills, the broader skill set that's needed, is transferable from any job you have before. And Microsoft specifically has these programs like the LEAP program and the ACE program, which goes behind those people who are not from a traditional background and brings them inside. And that actually shows that you don't really need a software engineering degree. It is transferable. You just need the right opening. So you need to be in the right place at the right time for everything. And if you are in the right place at the right time, or if you make the efforts to get to the right place at the right time, it can happen.
So, Anna, this question's probably a little fresh for you with regards to degrees, right?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think, I agree with everyone. Like having a degree certainly helps. That being said, my undergraduate degree is not in computer science. I have an undergraduate degree in material science engineering. So pretty different from what we're doing here, but I totally agree with Sia that the problem solving skills that you learn through getting, specifically a degree, I think is going to help you, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think it might make your life easier. For me, I just finished my master's in data science analytics, and I didn't personally do it for actually getting the job, because I feel like I have the job that I want, but I got it for myself to feel more confident that, hey, I am qualified to do what I do every day. Maybe that's a little bit of imposter syndrome that plays in there. But for me, it was I wanted to do this for myself. And now I feel more confident and I feel more qualified that if something happened and I needed to find a different job, I do think that having the degree is going to help me do that. But I've worked with plenty of people and women too, when I was in Microsoft consulting, that, worked really hard and were able to get to where we were without a degree. So I just think it's harder, but I don't think it's impossible.
So Pam, I'll go to you next, but I'm going to tack on for you to the question about the degree. Do certifications make a difference, and specifically to the data platform?
Sure. I think that's actually an interesting question. So as far as the degree aspect, I agree with everyone else. The point is, it opens doors for you. and it'll be harder for you to open those doors without it. So I think that's pretty well understood. I feel like certifications are kind of the same. It depends on the certification. So there are some certifications that are, you know, incredibly robust and say something about really what you know, like for example, like the networking CCNA stuff like that. Like those kinds of certifications really guarantee that that person can do that job. And not all certifications are the same. You know, some of the lighter weight certifications that we used to have, you know, everyone knows, like, you don't actually have to be a DBA to pass some of these, you know, data certifications. You can, you know, you can study a brain dump, and you can, you know, there's lots of things you can do to pass those tests. However, you know, it shows that you have a focus in that area. It shows, and to many employers that are looking through resumes, they are looking for those certifications because they show you, you know, that this person is focused in this area and this person is serious about, you know, this topic. Right. All that being said, I will also tell you that, you know, yes, I got a computer science degree and I started in this field as a consultant for Digital Equipment Corporation as an app dev consultant. I knew nothing. I'd never even taken a database class. And the way I learned SQL Server, believe it or not, is a certification boot camp. I went through 4 weeks of training. I had a 1-week class on SQL Server 6.0, I think at the time, SQL Server 6. But that certification exam, the funny thing is, it had nothing to do with the test. But it talked about, normalization and database normal forms. It talked about all these database concepts that I hadn't learned because I didn't have a, I didn't have a database class in college. So I learned all of that. I learned all the fundamentals of SQL Server through that. Ended up passing the test and getting my MCSD at the time. And that's really what kind of started my journey with SQL Server. So I feel like if you don't have a degree and you want to kind of start down this path and get some experience, the process of studying for that exam can really direct your learning. And I think that maybe the certification itself, again, it just opens doors, but it tells you what you should know. Do you know what I mean? So like,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't teach you what you need to know to do the job, but it tells you what you should know. Here are the topics that are important. Here are the skills that I expect someone in this role to have. And it just because you can pass the test doesn't necessarily mean you have those skills, but that can guide your learning. And I think that it's important in that way.
So that actually gives me a fantastic segue to ask Julie the next question, which is, what is a skill that you think every technologist should have?
It's a tough one.
Okay. I mean, I can tell you what I think it is, but
no, I have some thoughts about this. Okay. I'm trying to internalize what I have learned in the past. Okay, let's see, how many years have I been in the industry? 17 years, I think, something like that. So I realized that one of the things that actually will help technologies a lot more is understanding that learning never stops. Your capacity and efficacy of learning needs to continue. So, and the interesting thing, because we were talking a little bit about university or getting a degree, what I value from university is actually that critical thinking side of it, so that you can filter out a lot of the kind of like paths, so that you can discern which paths will help you discern over time. And this is going to come through experience as well, to decide, okay, which path do I want to take, which one should I learn, and then understanding what is next to learn, and set your kind of like continuous kind of learning sort of journey. So for me, in the tech aspect, it would be the learning side of it. And then the second one, and I think this is quite important, is how you apply that learning. Now, if you're an individual contributor and you work by yourself, you don't work with other people, and maybe that's okay. But once you start, thinking about scale, that's where, how do you bring your tech skill and what you learn and be able to integrate it with all this, your ecosystem, which is people, resources, and all this lovely world of tech.
Nice. So Yana, the same question for you.
So I would like to agree with Julie. First of all, is curiosity and ability to learn. But then it is also cooperation. We are kind of grew up on this myth of the usually male, very lonely software developer who solves all the job, everything by himself and creates something incredible. So I would like to say this myth has its own place, but I believe that now it's about cooperation, working together, and knowing how to listen. And what used to be less important in our industry, I think now became the quality and the skill that needs to be addressed more. So that's my opinion. Also sharing. I speak in conferences. I still do that. I did that before, and I think that first of all, my English improved tremendously when I started 4 years
Nice.
ago. So it was better than Toastmasters.
I've heard that from several other people that
yeah.
You know, a lot of others.
Mm-hmm. So speaking, it keeps you sharp, it keeps you in the industry, and it also keeps you growing other skill set when you are sharing and making sure that others can learn with you.
Nice. So I happen to think that the skill every technologist should have is the ability, and one of you touched on it earlier, I don't recall which one, is the ability to problem solve. When I would email, I'm losing my mind. When I would interview DBAs, I would ask open leading questions that would require them to make assumptions and to be able to solve the problem. And I would tell them, you're allowed to assume anything that you want. You just have to tell me what assumptions you're making. And if I don't know is an acceptable answer, but you have to tell me how you're going to figure it out. Because I can teach anybody to be a DBA, right? I cannot teach you how to be a problem solver. So if given the choice between teaching anybody to be a DBA or teaching a person who's a natural problem or has the skill to figure out problems when the answer isn't right in front of them, and I teach that person to be a DBA, I will take that person every time. So when I interview people, it's a discussion, because that helps me learn how they're going to approach a problem, how they're going to solve it, that kind of thing. So I happen to think that that's like one of the most vital skills that you can have as a DBA. But to touch back, I think in some cases, college helps that, depending on the path that you took through college. My degrees are not technical. Both of my degrees are in sociology and criminology, but I was taught critical thinking, and I was taught problem solving, and I was taught how to look at data as I got my degree. So that's where that came from me. Next question, and I'll just let one of you jump in here, is how do you keep up with advances in your field? Other than Pam builds it, like she is, she's like, how do I make the advancement. Everybody else has to keep up with me. So for the rest of you, how do you keep up with advances in your field?
Need to build tools to keep up with Pam's.
Nice. Okay.
And then Anna's going to teach you all about it. So she's going to help you keep up.
So then sorry, Sia, this one's on your plate. How do you keep up with advances in your field?
That's a good question. Everyone has their own way of doing things when it comes to learning. I am mostly an extrovert, and I really enjoy talking to people, not just known people, but anybody under the sky. I talk a lot, which has been tough in the pandemic, to be honest, to find people to talk to. But the way I sought to learn is in a company like Microsoft, you find so many pioneers and so many interesting people who have been subject matter experts in their field. And in this case, in case of IoT, which is where I was initially interested, the first 1 year or 1.5 years, I made a lot of connections in the Azure IoT side, where I met the folks who literally owned companies in IoT, which are pioneers over there, and talked to them, spent time with them, some of them turned out to be mentors, some of them turned out to be friends. And through them, when they share, ask them, like, there's a lot to learn outside, but learning the right thing and knowing which to go behind and which one to learn based on your interests, you need help from people in that space. That's how it's been for me. And conversations, and then picking up on what they advise or what they say is good to know is one way I go about learning stuff. Blogs, reading about it, videos, learning about it. And in general, at least in my space currently, because everything is new, it's all about reading a lot of these white papers and trying to understand what's happening in that field. How do I make Azure SQL Edge good for the IoT deployments? Like, what is it that people in the IoT side are looking at? Are they looking just at a service, or are they looking at a whole solution? How do they design their solutions? What do they do? I do tend to get into a rabbit hole on Google, to be honest. I start with one place, and then 3 hours later, I find myself in a completely different space. And I'm like, oh my God, I should be more structured when I go into Google and YouTube.
You shouldn't. Just the way you're doing it works for you.
Yeah,
you don't need to do it the way somebody else does it.
But I definitely think mentors and people make learning more interesting.
Nice. So then I'm going to pivot. I have a question here about describing an example of where you've needed a mentor and how that turned out. So I'm going to go to Anna and then Julie on this one. So Anna, can you think of an example where you've needed a mentor and how that turned out? And you can start anywhere in that story that you'd like.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I can say one example. Like, I think whenever you join a new team, you need a mentor, you need a buddy, you need someone, because there's so many things to navigate when you join a new team, not just the technology, but also the politics. So it's really nice to have someone, for example, I have someone on the DB team, and like, whenever something is happening, I can ping them, and it's a technology question or a politics question. And I know no matter how dumb it is, no matter maybe it's not politically correct, like, I can go to them. They're not going to judge me. They're not going to like share that externally than that, and they're going to help me. So I think that really helps in ramping up, building confidence, understanding organization. So I definitely think, like, whenever you start a new job, new role, a mentor is needed. And I've never been a part of a structured mentor program. I just kind of look for people in those first few meetings that look friendly or inviting, and I just send them a ping, set up a meeting, and then before they know it, I'm contacting them all the time. Nice. But for me, that's how it's worked. Like I said, I've never been a part of anything like formal. I've always found, like, if you want a mentor, you have to seek them out. You have to ask them. And then you have to be the advocate in the relationship that drives that mentor-mentee relationship. It's not on them, it's on you to drive that.
That's really important. I'm so glad you said that. Julie.
Okay. One of the, I have to admit that when I joined Microsoft, it wasn't like the easiest thing to pick up immediately.
What? That doesn't seem true.
It took me a while to be comfortable with myself again. It's sort of like, it's so weird. Like, I felt like, I was awarded MVP, which I was super grateful for. And I was really happy that it happened. And I learned a lot from the community. And then, I talked to my peers and everything else, and it felt, really good. And I joined Microsoft, and I felt the dumbest person in the world. That's probably going to go back to the imposter syndrome discussion, right? Anyway, so one of the things that actually I had to find my own compass. So that's where I got my mentorship from. And I actually didn't have a formal mentor that kind of like dictate or say to me, like, this is how you find your own compass. And I actually didn't know how to articulate it in that way, actually. So I decided, I just kind of essentially sort of like interviewing people that I find senior and that I find how, like, the kinds of folks that exhibit some level of grace, but being able to handle difficult situations. So I decided to ask like probably about 3 of them or something. And then, so I just asked like, I just said, hey, I was a consultant. Now I usually just, arrive, problem solve, but now I have to actually drive something as a program manager. Like, how do I I don't know. I just feel so out of place. So we had this conversation, and one of the things that one of the mentors that shared with me was framing and perspective, and it's a long journey, but I think I sort of start getting more and more comfortable with that now.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yes.
Does anybody else want to jump in on that one right there about an example of when you've needed a mentor and how it turned out? No? Okay. Last chance. Okay. So I'm going to skip over to the chat. Steve Jones has asked a question, and that this is a question that's probably more typical of a women in tech panel. But he asks, how do you deal with misogyny, assumptions that you are not qualified, or even hostile, harassing behavior? How do you look for allies? And what behavior would you want from an ally, male or female? So I think a lot of people on the call know I have some strong opinions on this. So I'll punt on this one first to somebody else. And probably Pam. I'll start with Pam. Sorry.
Sure.
Do you want me to go to somebody else, Pam?
No. I was actually unmuting myself because I have some ideas.
Strong
here.
opinions, right?
Well, I'm the queen of strong opinions. I think first and foremost, what I appreciate most, because I'll be honest with you, like I really have not experienced a lot of this directly myself. And I don't know if that's just because I have such strong opinions and I just am that person who goes out there like a bull in a china shop, like that's me. And I don't know if that like just deflects a lot of that or what, but I haven't felt a lot of this directly, but there have been some places where I felt this. And the most important thing for me in an ally is to just justify what I'm feeling and saying like, it's to have that outside perspective, particularly if it's from a man, that am I crazy here? Or, is this happening? Because a lot of times, like I'll write it off as, oh, it's just this person's culture, or it's this, and when someone else says to me, holy cow, I can't believe that just happened, then it just makes me feel so much more justified. So for me, that's like one of the most important things. And then the second thing would be to reinforce whatever it is I'm saying, and that I am indeed an expert in the field. I am indeed accurate in what I'm saying, and to reinforce that in a way that it's clear that that original message came from me. So like I recently had a situation where a customer was like, and I'm not even sure if it was direct. They were just like, I delivered a message, and then later they didn't like that message. And then later they're like, well, we're looking forward to hearing from the real experts, like quote unquote, like something like that. And it was just like, when someone else stepped in and delivered the same message, they were very specific to say, as Pam said, as we was discussed earlier, Pam outlined all of this. I stand behind this. So those were the two most important things: recognizing that I'm not crazy and that I was justified in my feelings, and then two, standing behind what I say in a way that makes it clear that I said it, and that you need to hear this message, right?
So I will add, before I go on to the rest of you, what Pam just mentioned is a technique called amplification. And that is where an ally in a meeting, when a woman says something, women tend to be talked over, and they tend to have their ideas kind of stolen and run with. It's really, really important, if you're an ally in a meeting, to say, that's a great idea, Pam, blah, 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 and repeat it so that you have reinforced the idea and given her ownership. Those are incredibly important things that mentors can do. But the other one is what she also said is when there's a woman on your team and someone questions her, when they turn to you and say, well, and they repeat the question, which I've had happen in my career. For you as an ally to not only give the exact same answer, but to point out, as Pam said, or to say, well, Pam just answered that. What part do you not understand? Like what part can I help you get? To make sure that you are reinforcing the fact that she answered you correctly, that she is actually the expert on this, and that you're not going to get me into your corner because she's correct. So those are the skill sets that I love from mentors. But I'll go to either of the other three women.
From allies, right? Not mentors.
Yes. What did I say?
You said mentor.
Oh, sorry.
But you meant ally, right?
Allies.
Well, I mean,
or mentors, but yes, I meant allies.
That's true, but that's one sticky point sometimes, is that like a lot of times when we start talking about women in tech, we start talking about, let's give them more mentors. They don't always need more mentors. They know what they're doing. They need allies, right? So
there's a concept, instead of being a mentor, there's a concept of sponsorship.
Yeah.
A mentor gives you advice on what it is that you can do or some steps that you can take. A sponsor will give you steps that you can take, but then help you get through the door.
Yeah.
Right? The sponsor is the person who makes sure you get assigned to that stretch project. So that's going to get you noticed in the company. They're the person who makes sure you're added to meetings. Sponsors are like mentors with superpowers, right? So, but I didn't know if any of the other ladies wanted to comment on misogyny in the workplace and what you would want from an ally.
Yana put something in the chat. I don't know if you want to expand further on that.
Okay, so while we were discussing mentors, I was Esther in this chat. So yes, I had several events like this. I'm single. I usually am attractive looking, and I had several events as a result in many events. And every time I was able to solve it privately, and usually with the help of an ally. It just helps me, so I don't need to behave aggressively just because. I can always rely on someone, and it helped me. It is the way I chose, and I also respected the fact that my way was respected. I was not forced to make a complaint, and I was not forced to behave in a way that I am less comfortable with. So what I expect of allies, this is exactly what I got from actually men allies, is I can talk to them in privately and say, hey, this and that happened. Please make sure this doesn't happen anymore. And this is exactly what it was. So Ri and other people in the community are very supportive, and this is my way. Again, if other people choose different ways, an ally just should respect, and I was respected in that concern. Just to add one thing to the mentors, because I didn't unmute my microphone on time. When I joined Microsoft, I have asked someone to be my mentor, and I was granted this opportunity, and someone, she helped me, and she still does. So yes, so this is something that is very legitimate to just, I believe, go and ask for someone's help.
So I will say that I think that's something Microsoft does better than any other company I've worked for. When I first started, I was literally assigned somebody. Now that person wasn't assigned to be my mentor exactly, but she was assigned to kind of help me. She was to be my go-to person when I had questions as I was navigating this giant company, right? All of those little things, or even how the whole department works or division, how everybody fits together, and who is who, and why they're important or maybe not important. But I think Microsoft does that really well. And then my boss encouraged me to go and find a mentor. And so I actually kind of picked two people that I meet with periodically just to discuss ideas that I have, or the direction I'm going, or something like that. But I think Microsoft probably does that better than any company I've worked for in the past. Let's see, next question. What are the greatest challenges that you as a woman have faced in the industry? And I will say, this doesn't need to be a gender specific answer. Women and men sometimes face the same challenges in the industry, but not always, right? So do I need to call on somebody, or does somebody want to go first? Who have I not called on for a moment? Is it Sia? Sia or Anna? Oh, Anna gestures to you. Nice. Here's the thing. Except from my view, Anna's pointing at me.
Where is she?
Yeah, she's pointing at me.
Okay, Sia. Sia, it's you. What is the greatest challenge that you as a woman have faced in the industry?
Greatest challenge. This was pretty early on. It was essentially my first job and my first manager when I came right out of undergrad. Everything was new to me. I didn't know what the corporate culture was like, especially in India, and how women are treated. I was a single kid. I was always the princess in the house. There was no way anyone's going to say, like, people listened to me when I put forth points. There was not a point when they just dismissed me and went forth with it. So when I first came to my first job, this kind of touches a little on the misogyny that we were discussing a little bit earlier. The one thing that I learned is if you have a manager who doesn't believe in you, it goes either way. It goes even for a girl or a guy. If you have a manager who doesn't believe in you, and if that is even more because of your gender, it is advisable to move out as against sit and fight that authority over there. Like it's not going to help putting forth facts and arguments and points. You might as well try it out once. That was what my mentor told me initially, is like, try to reason it out once, twice, go halfway through. If there's a stick, they try to go halfway through the stick. If the person on the other side of the table still doesn't want to come and pick the string from there, move out. Because in the end, if you're working for someone who doesn't believe in you, it undermines your confidence. And with women, there are statistics out there which say that the imposter syndrome is a little more higher because of the way we perceive things, because of the way we think about we tend to be more perfectionists in general. Or that's how it seems to be driven into us, that we are more of a perfectionist. We tend to have more imposter syndrome. So that for me was the greatest challenge. Like, first manager not believing in you because you are a woman. And I was from an electronics degree, not a computer science degree. So, and I was put into mainframes, which was completely new. So I was like, okay, what's happening? And that, like, losing your confidence in your first job is not the greatest experience ever.
Yeah, I would follow up on that and say, like both of the main points you made, like, one, overcoming imposter syndrome is like the biggest challenge. And two, if your manager doesn't believe in you, like, I've had the same experience, and the best move that I could have made, like, I tried to suffer through it, was just to leave. And maybe that's not the best thing to do, but that's what I did as well.
It absolutely is. Life is too short to work for a bad boss.
Yeah.
If you have options, go somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing I'll add on to that was like a big challenge for me, and I think it goes hand in hand with the imposter syndrome, was public speaking. Like, I was terrified, blacked out I started in the consulting org, and I'd have to go present to a client, blacked out the whole thing, like, would have to memorize it, practice it, like, couldn't get in front of somebody. And I think a lot of that had to do with the imposter syndrome, because I just wasn't confident. I felt like I didn't know what I was talking about. I felt like at any point someone was going to be like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. Get out of here. Like, you don't belong here. So like, that was a very real feeling for me for like years. And I feel like for me, as weird as it sounds, like, it might sound weird coming from me that like public speaking is like one of the biggest hurdles I've had to overcome. But like, what helped me so much was just doing it more. Like, I took a job where that was the main thing I had to do, and I was terrified, but it really helped my confidence. I feel like, you know, a big part of imposter syndrome, I'm totally over, because it's like, yeah, there are some things I know, there are some things I don't know. And when I don't know them, I can just say that, or I can say, I don't know, but I'll find out. I've dealt with, you know, through experience, you learn how to like deal with these situations. So I would advise everyone, like, you're at a community event, like, start participating in your community, start speaking, like, people will support you, and you'll only get better, and it will only get easier. So.
Right. So I'll tack on to that, and then I'm going to go to Julie. So be ready with imposter syndrome, Julie. I will say that when I talk to people about imposter syndrome and feeling like you're the dumbest person in the room, I usually tell them that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you were the smartest person in any room that you're in, there's nothing more for you to learn there. So with that, Julie, I will ask can you think of an example of how you were affected by imposter syndrome, and if it's even necessarily a bad thing?
Yeah, good question, Larry. There's one thought that I want for folks to consider. The more I read into it, the more I think, or come to a conclusion that I think imposter syndrome is somewhat systemic. Because I could be in one position, say, for example, where I was in Australia, I could get hired really easily. I could say, I'm a consultant, this is the solution to go. We're going to implement this, and people believe in me, pay me good money, and I'll be great. I felt this imposter syndrome when I came to the States, because it feels like, hey, I come from Australia, but I don't really look Australian because I'm Asian. My accent sounds funny. People don't understand me sometimes because I say data instead of data. Some of those funky small things, right? And then I realized that, I think I observed that my manager, two times I moved to US twice. That's just that I don't give up. And it was tough. I think I have had my share of managers or the environment that don't really believe in me, or just in general, maybe they didn't really want me to be there. And that is that actually brings that imposter syndrome, it flares up a lot more. And so sort of going back to the question before this imposter syndrome, one of the challenges in technology, I think, is that it's really hard to find, this is sort of coming from me, from my perspective, by the way, it's really hard to find which team can I go to that I can have psychological safety so that I can perform well. So that I don't have to question myself all the time if I deserve to be here, to be alive even. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that for now.
Oh, well, you are very good at what you do. I hosted a focus group for women MVPs last year at Past Summit, and invited several Microsoft employees. So Anna was there, Julie was there, Yana was there. Because Julie and Yana are both previously MVPs, they gave it up to join Microsoft, right? And there were several Microsoft MVPs, women, who said, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm an MVP. I don't know why I got it. And so for several of them, I pointed at them and said, because this is what you do that got you to the table. This is what you do that got you to the table. So if it makes you feel any better, women who are literally at the top of their game wonder why they get invited to the table. So, along those lines, imposter syndrome is incredibly, incredibly normal. If you have never experienced imposter syndrome, or you don't know what we're talking about at all, I will tell you that I probably think you're a sociopath. And I'm not kidding. I really think that you're lacking something if you've never experienced. That's a diagnosis, by the way. 5 cents. So Pam, I'm going to totally switch topics and ask you, if you could go back in time and speak to yourself before you entered IT, what would you say, or what kind of advice would you give past Pam?
Wow, that's a big one. I mean, Man, you got to give me. I thought I was going to talk about imposter syndrome.
Okay, hold on. You can talk about imposter syndrome, and I'll make Sia answer this question in a second. Sorry, Sia.
It's okay. That's a good one.
Okay.
Because it's funny. I am not I'm not like a 5-year, 10-year planner. Like I'm just not that person. Like I'm like, this seems like fun. I'm going to do this now. And then all of a sudden it's my career. Like, I mean, I went to school to be an opera singer, you guys, like, which by the way, speaking of public speaking, the only reason that I felt comfortable, like, I mean, I was also terrified the first time I did it, but having gone through performance training and being a singer and being on stage like that, in fact, maybe that's actually a good answer to this question. Because to be honest with you, like to go back then, like I made a choice in college. I was a junior in college when I added computer science. I first added it as a minor, and then my senior year, I added it as a double major because I had enough credits to finish the degree. And back then, it was such a huge decision because like I knew I didn't want to be an opera singer. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I really liked computers, and email was just becoming a thing, and the internet was just becoming a thing. I mean, I just to tell you how old I am, I graduated college in 1997. So that was this time when everything was exploding. And so I made that choice back then. And it seemed crazy. Like everyone's like, you were a music major and now you're computer science. I mean, computer scientists will tell you they all like are performers on the side anyway, but it was such a huge decision. And if I had to go back, I wouldn't change anything. Like I honestly, like, would I have not gone to music school and would I have started computer science right away? No, because all of that experience, like I cannot tell you how valuable that training has been throughout my career. And the fact that I was, that I was able to take that leap and start teaching workshops. Like I was terrified to teach my first workshop too. And I put a little anecdote in the chat about how somebody in my class called me out as like never having taught before. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're going to get this over with fast. No, I've never taught this before. But like I did it because like the aspects of standing in front of a group of people, like that part I was already kind of comfortable with, like, and I knew what it took to get through it because I knew that like in my singing, as long as I was prepared, as long as I was prepared, I knew I could get through it. And so like just having that experience of standing up in front of a group of people, being the center of attention, like just the preparation that goes into that, knowing what you need to say, it needs to be second nature, right? Like what you want to say needs to be second nature. And when you get there, then you feel more comfortable. Like that experience was invaluable. And honestly, if I had to go back to myself back then, I would have said, don't change a thing. Because all of that was really key. And it seemed crazy at the time, but it all worked out. So
karaoke from Pam. We can make that happen.
Just seriously, maybe. If you're worried about public speaking and you don't know how to get started, just go to karaoke bars. Because like that, to me, if you can comfortably get up in a karaoke bar and sing a song, there you go.
Especially in the data community, right?
Right.
The karaoke is the universal language, I think. Okay, Sia, if you could go back in time and speak to yourself before you entered IT, what advice would you give yourself?
Okay, that's a loaded question. What advice would I give myself? Be more confident. And the fact that you're entering IT and you can learn anything at any given time. You don't have to be a master of that subject before you start working in that field. That would be one thing that I would tell myself, because in the initial years, that's what kept me back. But other than that, nothing else. Just be more confident in who you are.
Okay. Julie, what about you? If you could go back in time and give advice to young, sweet, young, like before IT Julie.
I would probably ask myself to interestingly learn more about sports and take up more sports stuff. I don't know, it sounds out of the box, but it does make sense. One of the things that was the hardest, like I said before, with the, sometimes I feel like the dumbest person in the room when I joined Microsoft and all that kind of stuff. I had this argument with one of the top people that I work with quite closely. And I was trying to say that, and I wish that I could have just kind of like, brought it up then and there, but eventually I got it. I said, it's hard if you want to hire the same person, say for example over here with Seahawks, Russell Wilson. If all your team is Russell Wilson, you're not going to be able to win the game. You have to play defense and you have to play offense and all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, like, if I actually had learned that earlier on, I think I probably would have been able to win quite a lot of projects more easily. So
the old expression, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will think it's a failure. Right.
Yeah. Because
okay.
Because it's hard, because sometimes, like, for example, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people have, whether you want it or not, there's somehow this kind of like inherent bias, whether it's systemic or not. So sometimes we might have to kind of over pivot to prove more, or be able to do, like, to say some of this, to make ways, or to be able to unplug yourself. And it turns out that I think teams, like sport teams, actually, if you can, especially in the United States, it seems to be pretty big here. So I should have taught myself how to play basketball or football.
Let me tell you, the number of times as an adult where I have had some man in IT assume that I don't know anything about football, and to be able to utterly humiliate him when he talks smack to me is a feeling I wish I could bottle. Like, to be able to just go, oh, first of all, and and then luckily I have enough SQL friends who were like, why in the world did you challenge an SEC girl to a football question? She's gonna win this one. She's just, but it happens all the time. They're like, oh, you like the Falcons, huh? Is that your boyfriend's team? Boy, sit down. So, right. So it happens more than I would love to admit, that I get challenged on that. So does anybody else want to add anything about going back in time and speaking to young you? No? Okay. So we actually have about 10 minutes left, because it's a 60-minute session with 15 minutes for Q&A. We've taken a few questions from the chat as we've gone, but I'll send this one to Yana and then Anna. How has the SQL culture and the industry changed in the last 5 years, and what do you predict will happen in the next 5?
Okay, I believe that the whole data platform changed from mostly in the organization into cloud. And even it started with Power BI, of course. It started even before Power BI, but Power BI and the whole data platform enabled it quite a lot. And right now there are less and less things that are on-premise, and that are happening on-premise. And a lot of that is basically processed in either Azure Cloud, or in Azure SQL, or basically in other platforms that are non-Microsoft that are in the cloud. And I believe that this trend will continue. And also what I believe that it will continue the citizen developer trend, and that more and more is accessible just even without the DBA or the software engineer, that the person themselves, the subject matter expert, can service themselves with whichever data or they need this to support their decisions, and continue the data-driven decision support methodology enablement. So those are the two things I believe will continue, and we'll probably see more advanced solutions that data scientists create, but are reused by those citizen developers, by managers, by business analysts, not even data analysts, in order to make their decisions better. So that's my opinion.
Anna, did you want to add or change anything there about where the industry and culture has changed over the last 5 years, or a prediction for the future?
Sure. I mean, I would like to throw that question actually back at you, Ree, because I think you have a lot more, like you've been in the SQL community for more than 5 years. So, why don't you tell us how the culture's changed and where you think it's going?
So, I have to say, social media, I know this sounds silly to say social media affects the data platform, but it does, right? And all of us being plugged in all the time to social media changes the culture of the data platform. So over the last 5 to 10 years, my ability to network with other DBAs and people who do what I do, my ability to access their knowledge bank changed the way I did my job. It made it a whole lot easier to be a solo DBA or a DBA in a small shop because I didn't have to have all of the knowledge in my head. I didn't have to have all the knowledge in my shop. I had access to it, or I knew people who could find it for me. So that is actually the advice that I will give to every single person that's on this call as they move forward, is to build a really strong network. And that's probably the thing that has made the SQL community so much different than the community, if it even exists, around other technology, right? The SQL community and maybe security has really, really taken advantage of Twitter and what Twitter has to offer. The SQL help hashtag, the fact that that even exists and that people know to use it, that you can tweet a question about your particular database issue to hashtag SQL help. And some of the best people in the industry will answer you, whether they're MVPs or literally, like Pam, the people who build the product. So I think that's probably one of the things that's changed the most over the last 5 to 10 years, is the influence that social media has specifically on my career. Like, I think if I weren't tuned into the community, I know that I wouldn't have the job that I have right now. And it would be impossible for me to do my job without those connections that I have. So let's see. Pam, did you want to add anything to that question about the industry or the culture changing in the last 5 years?
No, not really. I mean, I think you nailed it with the Twitter. And I mean, the one thing I would say is, like, I don't know if it's because I'm in it, but I feel like the SQL community is just so strong. And I feel like that's something that's unique in the industry. And I feel like it's social media that allowed that to happen. And because I've been in SQL so long, I don't know if there are other communities, but like when I talk to other folks, I don't feel like they're as strong. I mean, SQL family, like just right. It's a thing. It's really a thing. And
it really is. So my wedding party, no lie, has, even on Chris's side, has SQL people in it. He's not SQL. He's not this at all, but one of his groomsmen is actually a Microsoft MVP in the data platform, because he met him. Well, he met him. We've been together for, several years now, but he met him through me and through these events that I attend. And now he's in my wedding on my husband's side. So yeah, you're right. I don't know of any other industry that has that. So I will wrap it up with, let's see, and any of you can answer this. So if someone watching today wanted to work at Microsoft, where would you suggest they start? And don't say careers.microsoft.com, because that's the obvious answer. You don't get away with that.
That's how I got my job.
Is it really? Like, you just went to careers.microsoft.com and applied?
I absolutely did.
Oh.
That's how I got mine too.
Who are you people?
So you poo-pooed that answer, but that's the right one.
But no, it's still wrong. It just happens to be how. Okay, fine. Go to careers.microsoft.com. No, so there are other
Yes, community engagements, for example, it's a good idea. It's
That's
a very,
true.
very good example.
But that circles
Speaking at
back to
events, yeah.
that circles back to attending events and SQL Family and all that stuff. So making that connection and building that network and then going to careers.microsoft.com, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we have one question here. Let's see. So Heidi, can you get a selfie with the group? Yes, but you have to turn your camera on to get a selfie with the group. So she asks, have you found being remote/virtual has made a difference in meetings for you? Like some meetings can be seen as bossy, etc. In the virtual world, and so maybe that online has amplified other people's traits. So either is it amplifying people's traits, or is it that on online meetings a lot gets lost? Just like if you were just on the phone, body language gets lost. So has anybody found that that's more difficult in a virtual world than before?
From my personal experience, I have realized I'm talking way too less in virtual meetings as against in-person meetings, because in in-person meetings, I kind of emote a lot on my face and my hands. And that's how I get others' attention, that I have something to tell you, because by the time I make my thoughts and it processes, my hands and face have done everything for me. So unmuting it and then getting your thoughts in order and then putting it. And the other thing is, I'm a very much a whiteboard person. I usually like to pick up the pen, go to the whiteboard, start drawing everything so that my thoughts are in order and I know what I'm conveying and what I want to get. So a lot of those things end up as lost in translation, and I find myself extremely quiet in meetings.
Turn your camera on. I mean, that's what I've been doing. Like, you guys know, I default to having my camera on in every meeting I join. And it's because a lot of times, like, you'll see me nodding, and so you know I'm listening to you and I'm agreeing, or you'll see me like do this or whatever. Like, I talk with my hands too, you know.
It's odd if you're the only one who's turned on the camera and everyone else has their camera off. For me,
guess what? My face is big in the screen. Like, I'm taking up the whole monitor. I don't care.
So it's easier for me to share my camera if somebody is sharing their screen, because then I know that I'm just this little square down at the bottom.
Yeah.
But if I'm the only person with my camera on, it's like, hey.
I tell you what, and this is maybe a secret that will help you guys later. Once you get past 40, you just stop caring what anyone thinks about you.
I don't not care what they think about me.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I care less than I did before, and I certainly don't want to hear their opinion about me. That's the difference. Yes. I care what they think about me, but I don't want to hear it. And I'm not gonna, even if they told it to me, I'm not gonna change anything.
Exactly. That's probably more like right? I could say it in a way that I'm probably not supposed to say out loud. So
that's never stopped me, Pam, and I'm fine.
0 F's given, right?
Right. Okay, so we are technically at time, and I see our nice moderator has turned his camera back on, so he can corral us here to wrap things up. So thank you all very, very much for coming today and for participating. We really appreciate it, especially for those of you where it is a crazy time of the day. So, look, Steve, everybody's turned their camera on. Nice. Oh, there's Alicia again. I'm loving her hair. It looks so different. I love it.
Probably a good time to take a selfie, Heidi.
Yeah,
right?
Is everybody getting their selfie?
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks for organizing this. And thank you, all the panelists, Pam, Anna, Julie, Sia, and Yana. Thanks for all the discussions. Very, very interesting, very, very informative. So we'll look forward to having this in future again. Yes.
Nice.
He likes it. Thank you, everyone. And have a good weekend. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Stay healthy and safe.
Just let me know if you've got it before I end the conference call.
Everybody got
couple.
their selfie?
I grabbed a
Oh.
picture.
There you go.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks,
good
everyone.
weekend.
Pleasure being here.
Bye.
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 Thank you so much.